As we look at our satellite images today, we kind of like to look at the MODIS Aqua or Terra satellite, which is a polar orbiter and goes around the Earth every 90 minutes, up around 250 miles. In the top center, you see what it looked like yesterday, with some of the typical very humid air mass, low clouds forming in southern New England, the frontal system in central New York, and a fog bank off the Maine coast. The lower center picture is from the GOES satellite up over 22,000 feet on the equator, and we're looking at a water vapor image this morning, 20,000-foot water vapor imagery, and you can see over New England the stalling cold front moving through. What's stalling it is in the western Atlantic. There's a spin here heading west, west-northwest slowly, which may come into our forecast later Sunday. Also of note is take a look at the jet streak punching into the cold front here at 20,000 feet showing up. Pretty nice feature. As we look at the service area the last 30 days from the Northeast Regional Climate Center maps, the precipitation has been generally below normal across much of the Northeast, except for portions of Maine, slightly above normal. We want to emphasize here that even though we see below normal precip the last 30 days, we've had some real isolated thunderstorms that have shown up between some of our gauges, up to 2.5 inches in 90 minutes in the past 2 weeks, scattered throughout the area. Temperatures the last 30 days have been above normal, adding to a great evaporation month. Last 90 to 180 day precipitation departures. On the left is the last 90 days, and you can see that we had a real wet June, early July, which made for precip departures are slightly above normal across over half the area. But in southern Connecticut, the parts of eastern Massachusetts, southeast New Hampshire, some below normal precipitation amounts showing up. And on the right, we have the departure of normal in the last 6 months. And we can see we had that dry stretch through May, and it's showing up here. Much of the Northeast below normal precipitation, up to over 8 inches below normal in southern Connecticut. And as I go through some of the graphics, you'll see how this is seen in other graphics from other agencies here. The U.S. Drought Monitor, the left map is August 18th, and on the right is a month ago. We've increased slightly the coverage of D0, abnormally dry area across the Northeast, with coastal southern Maine and Long Island, coastal Connecticut in the D1 type of zone as it was a month ago. On the bottom graphics, the little inserts here are the Palmer drought and crop moisture indices from this month and last month, and it's pretty much normal across much of the Northeast, with some dryness showing up in those same areas, long and short term on the Long Island area. What's different here with the CPC seasonal drought outlook from now till the end of November is the Climate Prediction Center is saying the drought development is likely across much of our area here, southern and eastern New York, New England, which is different from a month ago, but we'll go into a little bit of that discussion also. So they're looking at drought development likely. As we look at the USGS streamflow conditions of the 7-day average streamflow compared to historical streamflow for the day of the year, much of the area has normal streamflow with below normal streamflow in some parts of southern New England, Rhode Island, and coastal Connecticut. The current groundwater conditions, similar, much of the area has normal groundwater conditions with some below normals punching through different areas. Whether it's a bedrock well or a sand and gravel well, we've seen normal and below normal on both types of wells sporadically across the Northeast. So the graph on the right is just one of the wells in Kenduskeag, Maine, showing it's in the normal range, but falling as it should this time of year through normal. The soil moisture conditions from the experimental product from NASA and NERCC. The top graphic is the 1 meter soil moisture anomaly in millimeters, and the bottom graphic is the total water column that they're looking at with the soil moisture anomaly showing this drier in southern New England and some moisture above normal in northern New England in the past 30 days. Water supply system, New York's water supply system, still 7% above normal, thanks to the very wet June, but pretty close to normal July, but here again in August we've gotten dry. They're above normal. Quabbin in Massachusetts is normal operations. Situate Reservoir is well below the spillway, but just slightly below normal, and Lake Champlain here in August is about 1 foot above the average of 95.5, or a little over 96.5. As we look ahead the next few days to 2 weeks, we see above normal temperatures throughout this period. In the first week, after the next 5 days, the CPC looks at the below normal precipitation, basically for the next 2 weeks. But the first 5 days here, first 2 days here on the left was showing half to 3/4 to half to an inch of rain with a dying front in eastern New England. And the graphic on the right is Water Prediction Center's 7-day outlook. Basically all this rain is falling in 6 days, and that rainfall of 1 inch to 2 inches is normal to slightly above normal for the week for this time of year. After that, things start drying out, as I'll show you. Our Northeast River Forecast Center deterministic forecast is showing that no flooding at any of our gauges anticipated in the next 72 hours. Our Met Model Ensemble Forecast System, out to 7 days, North American Ensemble Forecast System, is showing less than a 30% chance of any of these locations reaching action level. So we've been pretty dry. Now, as we look at the 6 to 10 day on the left 2 graphics, and the 8 to 14 day, pretty persistent above normal temperatures through that period. Also, as I mentioned, after the first 5 to 6 day period, CPC is going for a slightly less than normal precipitation across the Northeast, except in Maine where it's about equal chances of normal precipitation. Some of the driving things for this forecast is the El Nino, which I'll get into shortly. The CPC September outlook, the top 2 graphics, equal chances of above normal to below normal temperature, equal chances being normal, equal chances of normal precipitation through that period. As we head into the seasonal outlook, September, October, November, warmer than normal plus drier than normal. Some of this is built on extreme El Nino that is set up in the Pacific. And right now, the dynamic average from the dynamical models is strong El Nino, 5 3-month periods of over 2.0 anomaly in sea surface temperatures. So it's really pretty strong El Nino, and it's expected to continue through the North Hemisphere winter. 90% chance of this. So as we compared some of the other El Ninos this time of the year, going back to 1990, you can see that the El Nino now at 3.4 index El Nino is pretty similar to the 1997 El Nino and the sea surface temperature anomaly. In the graph on the right, the data goes back to 1950. It's ranked in 3rd place as one of the largest El Ninos since 1950. How does that affect some of our weather here? Well, CPC has also looked at the seasonal precipitation anomalies in millimeters. And I've got 4 graphics up here: September, October, November, October, November, December, drier than normal in the Northeast with anomalies as shown here in the brown. As we head into the winter months, if you remember Dave Valley's talk a couple of months ago, we start seeing a shift towards a wetter period, especially into the winter, late winter into spring. Typical of a strong El Nino. They don't all act the same, but these are some of the anomalies that came out of the CPC study. Getting closer to home here with the next few days, on August 25th, we see we're still being plagued here with the surface map with precip and the old front in the area. So from now through Wednesday, there's a chance of precip in the Northeast on our basins. Basically, there's a pretty strong upper level, 500 millibar closed system over north of the Great Lakes. pretty anomalous for August with this trough here in the east. We should be pretty happy that there's nothing down here in the Bahamas developing because the flow is right up the coast for the next 5 to 6 days. As we move out in time to August 29th, we can see a frontal system here in the Great Lakes. It's not really moving too quick because the old Bermuda High is poised here and not really failing. The flow aloft is it's out of the west-southwest, and the front is going to get hung up there for days, north and west of New England. So we're supposed to go into a pretty dry period as we get late into August into early September. CPC has updated the hurricane prediction, where they're calling for below normal chances of 90% on the hurricane season, with 0 to 1 major storm, Category 3 or higher predicted. On the lower left, I have the tracks this morning of Hurricane Danny, and it's supposed to meet some very unfavorable conditions as it heads towards Puerto Rico. So whether or not it holds together, we'll see. But as we talked about earlier, the main development region with a strong vertical wind shear, upper level winds, these green arrows here, preventing a season to be very active. We look at the water temperatures this morning off the East Coast, and 80-degree water temperatures are coming right up to the southern New Jersey coast, with upper 70s south of New England. 78 degrees in Providence, 79 in New Haven. Very warm temperatures for this time of year, and this is a concern because if something does develop near the East Coast, it's not going to weaken quickly coming north because it's very warm temperatures. The lower left image is for you who want to look at some satellite imagery. It's called a Dvorak image. And when the systems are too far east to fly into them, they use a technique here to look at cloud cover to determine how much wind is in these systems. That's being used by the Hurricane Center to look at wind speed. So the map here on the left is just showing the current tracks of weak Hurricane Danny. And you can see in the lower picture here, Danny is this little blob in the center, surrounded by a lot of dry air and Saharan dust. It's going to have a real hard time punching into the Antilles and surviving into the Puerto Rico area. And one of the maps that I had some comments on that I know people like to look at, it's counterintuitive, the color, but those deep rusty colors are the high precipitable waters. You can see Danny moving in that flow. And also you can see the precipitation that's affecting us this morning here with that retrograding low in the western Atlantic and the frontal system that's stalling out. That's about it. Pretty quiet here. Any questions?